Hey guys, so today we're going to be walking through this bread festival that's happening in my city. So, there will be a lot of these bread vendors out today trying to sell their bread at these stalls. And I want to talk a little bit about the bread culture that exists in Chengdu and in China as a whole. So, as you can see, this bread festival is not really for, simple bread or, bread that you'd find in any grocery store, but this is some kinds of fancy bread, okay? And these fancy bread stalls, or I should say bakeries, all around the city have accumulated here today to show off their breads and hopefully have a few customers buy their artisan style breads. So these are fancy breads. Okay, fancy, very fancy. And as you'll see later, there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of different kind of bread here. And right over here, I'm actually going to try some of this bread for myself. So for me, actually, I'm not here to buy the bread. I'm mostly here to take some footage and take some samples because I'm not trying to eat bread at this period in my life. I am trying to stay away from carbs as much as possible. But let's take a look at what's going on here. So, you might ask yourself, why bread and why bread in China? So, just like you might think that baozi or jiaozi is something that's foreign, something that's exotic to try, especially if you go to a Chinese restaurant wherever you live. Bread is something that's foreign and somewhat European in the sense that Chinese people, they want to be more worldly in the sense that it's not easy for them for I would say a majority of people in China to leave their country. So they want to still have that kind of foreign experience. And to them, foreign or European kind of has, some assimilation to bread. Bread is not something that was always eaten in China. Like I've said, they are more used to steaming their bread, which is called a mantou, okay, instead of baking their bread. So what has happened now is that China has really adopted bread into their daily diets, okay? Something that bread has become as a staple food is a lot of Chinese people will eat it for breakfast. And if you say to a Chinese person, would you like milk and bread for breakfast? It's a very common thing now. And maybe that wasn't the case, a few decades ago. And over here, you can see a bunch of people just watching this lady make a cake in public, and they're probably lined up to eat that cake after. Maybe they've downloaded the QR code and put all in their information just to get a chance to try this cake. And they're all waiting and taking video of this cake so then they can try it. But getting back to the whole idea of bread, it's also become a fusion food in China, which has, incorporated fusion or Asian style flavors as well, which we will see in a little while. And so this whole fair here, this whole event is here to showcase something that's kind of exotic, kind of unique in China, and something that's a little more expensive than the usual bread that you will see. Because bread has become popular with a lot of chain stores as well, carrying bread such as Holy Lai, okay, and a few other larger bread stores. Here in this artisan bread festival, a lot of this bread is a little more expensive, from 10 to 12 RMB. And here on this sign, you can see all of the different bread, bakery, cafes that are here. I would say about 100 or maybe even more than 100 bakeries in my city. So that just gives you the scope of how much bread has become popular, and especially like special kinds of bread. So there's a this saying in China that I've heard in my city for the young generation of Chinese people, which is that the dream job for a girl is to own a cafe, and the dream job for a man is to own a bar. And so in my city especially, you will find a lot of these very small, boutique cafes and bakeries and even bars as well. They will be very small spaces, but they will be offering, artisan products, small products that will hopefully be attractive to some customers. Okay, so over here you can see the different like types of fusion style flavors for these breads, okay, which include like black rice flavor and chestnut flavor, okay, of course like a matcha flavor as well, some nuts, pumpkin, and taro purple potato flavor. So this is how they've incorporated Asian flavors and kind of changed the style of what bread is here. Okay, so going back to what I was saying, um, it's not very easy to have a cafe or have a small bar, despite it being, your dream job for a lot of young people in China nowadays, because they believe that having these storefronts will have a much easier lifestyle than entering the job market in China, which ultimately will have you working, 996 hours and overtime on a regular basis. So they see this as kind of like an escape. And so, as you can tell, there are a lot of young Chinese trying to pursue this idea because they're out here, trying to sell their special breads, trying to attract customers, and trying to create a product that they actually believe in, a product that they believe will actually make people, happier. This stall over here, I actually found the bread was actually pretty good, so I decided to buy a few breads for myself, and they were actually pretty nice. I bought a matcha one and a pumpkin one, a pumpkin cinnamon roll, which was actually really good. And so the turnover rate for these types of businesses, cafes, bakeries, and small bars is very high because it's not easy to run these businesses. It's not always easy for these people to attract customers or customers that will keep coming back when there are so many of these businesses around my city and probably in other larger cities in China. Bread might not be a big deal outside of China. Maybe where you live, bread is a normal thing. But over here, they've turned it into a commodity where it's become, a foreign escape. The idea of leaving your country, leaving your situation by taking a bite out of this bread, is what they are trying to sell, and especially with this more expensive product. So they will have these events for a lot of different kinds of products like wine and coffee I've seen. So by bringing something new, by bringing something special, by bringing something interesting, a lot of these vendors try to make a business out of what they are doing. And so if you like this video, if you like the things I'm sharing with you about China, then please consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.